Alrighty.
Just waiting on a quorum right now. Let's see if we give it a few more minutes.
Oh, I see Richard Moon.
Oh, I came to join us now. Just you right now.
So, yeah.
So we only have 2 SWAC members here so far, so still, let's give it a few more minutes and see what we get.
People are busy today.
They're either busy or they forgot us.
While we wait for a quorum, do you want to pause the recording so that it's not?
Yeah, we're gonna pause for right now and just wait for more people to enter the lobby. All right, the recording has resumed. Right now we have 5 SWAC members present and we need 8
Yes.
to continue. So,
It looks like we're not gonna have a quorum at this meeting unless some folks show up early, or sorry, excuse me, late. And, it doesn't appear that. Yeah. It doesn't appear that we have, Dave Nightingale here, but we do have Greg on the line, as vice chair. So Greg, are you prepared to chair this meeting?
Actually, I am not because I'm commuting right now.
Okay, yeah.
It could be anybody that can, but that.
great.
So it looks like, Greg cannot chair. Greg, what if I kind of help out and then you kind of, give you some cues if you need it?
Sure, that'd work. I'll try.
Yeah.
It's probably best that we don't have a quorum in that case then.
So we can go down, the roll right now and I should also mention that, our division manager, Jeff Bickford, is in jury duty today. So he will not be here, so I'm subbing for him. Going down the line of, let's see, SWAC members, it looks like we have Elaine Clam here.
Yes.
And then we also, heard from Greg Schoenbachler. I see,
Correct.
yeah, and I see Aaron Robertson.
Hello.
I see Christina Kohlberg from Ecology.
Hi.
We have, Nicholas Dunning.
Yep, here.
We have Lisa here in
And
the
Lisa
room. with us.
Harrison here in the room with us, yep. And then going down the list of, county folks, we have April Rowe from Public Works.
Hello.
Of, Jessica Goulet,
Hi there.
Public Health, yep. And let's see, Kimberly Graham from Public Health also.
Good morning.
We have Kylie Graber from Public Health.
Good morning.
And I apologize, I'm reading this list, but Zoom keeps moving the order of the list. Matt Samuelson from, Public Works.
Yep, good morning.
And who else? Let's see, Maggie Brown from Public Works.
Morning. Hello.
Rob Pudner from Public Works.
Good morning.
We have Tony Basinger from Public Works also.
Howdy.
I saw Jennifer Johnson from Public Health.
Good morning.
Oh, and David Nightingale is here now. So you're off the hook, Greg.
Hey, all right. Thanks.
And did I miss anyone else that's a county staff? person?
Just us in
Oh,
the
and
room.
yeah, us in the room. We have Hope from Public Works, Laura from Public Works, and myself from Public Works, Amanda. And then joining us from Herrera is Wendy Mifflin. And I think Wendy brought with her Emily Rhodes,
With HDR.
HDR.
Morning.
Did I miss anyone? Great. So David, if you want to take it away, we don't have a quorum today, so we won't be able to approve minutes.
Okay, great. So, I plan to be there and actually leave right about now because my clock here says it's about time for me to go and be there. But I had a power outage yesterday, and this clock is not digital. It doesn't reset itself. So I'm looking at the wrong clock. So anyway, I'm frantically searching for my agenda right now. So what is I guess we can't approve anything. We can't make any motions if we don't have a quorum. But what's the first thing there on the agenda as I try to find it here?
So we have no public comment unless somebody would like to make a public comment. And we don't have any old business. And our next item is new business. And it's the 2025 SWAC work planning presented by me. I've just provided everybody a PDF file of our schedule for next year. We're not going to be voting on it this meeting, but the next meeting we will. So if you have any additional things you would like to add to the work plan for next year, please email me, let me know, and I'll try to get that scheduled in for you. And that's all I have.
Okay, great.
The next item is the hazardous waste management plan, chapters 4 through 6, presented by Kimberly Graham, Emily Rhodes, and Wendy Mifflin.
Great. Yep. And I've got the agenda in front of me finally here. So great. So is Wendy gonna lead us or is somebody else?
Good morning.
Kimberly?
I'll go ahead and kick us off. I'm just pulling up the PowerPoint now. Give me 1 second.
Great.
Can I butt in here really quick? Dave, as chairman, I have a question for
Sure.
you.
Mhm.
So at the end of this, we would need a recommendation from the SWAC to move this forward into regulatory review. And you don't have a quorum today. And the 3 chapters that we need to present on are probably the most important chapters of this plan. So what would the SWAC like to do? Would you like to go through them? Or would you want to wait until your December meeting? What do you want to do?
Do you mean go through them as in go through your presentation right now?
Well, so yes, we would have a presentation, but I think it would be important to bring it up to the whole, as many as we can with a quorum, because we need a recommendation in order to move it forward.
Right. Okay, well, we can't do anything today as far as voting, obviously. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and do your presentation. And then everybody's got, a copy of your 227-page document. And so we'll just have to vote on it. We can't vote on it now. So it'll have to wait till December.
Okay.
I don't think there's any other option.
Or, Wendy, were you saying that, maybe just wait for the presentation till everybody can have it and they can vote on?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I think, each of the cities need to help the county take this back to their city councils for approval. And I really think that the next 3 chapters are pretty important for the understanding of that. And so, maybe the county and And Dave, as the chair, would like to go out and get the cities to participate. So they know what they're bringing back to their cities.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That, from my historical knowledge of SWAC, that might be wise to make sure cities get the correct information.
Yeah.
I just
Elaine,
wanted to
I had her hand up.
Yes. Do we need to print out this booklet?
I don't
That's
think
a-
so.
If you would prefer, you can, but you can also look at the digital copy on your computer or tablet device.
And
I just
that would be a way to share it with the city council?
Yes. So Elaine, when the SWAC makes the motion to move this forward into regulatory review, it
Uh-huh.
will go to the Department of Ecology and we'll get comments from them. And then it will come back to the SWAC to review those comments. And then we'll do a final document that the health district will bring to each of the cities and the Board of County Commissioners for adoption.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
just wanted to add that December has a pretty light schedule. So there's no concern with scheduling there if this needs to happen, just so everybody knows.
There be any issue with getting a quorum in December? Is that a likely attended month?
It
I
could,
know I won't be here.
okay, so we may need to reach out to, sometimes if there's a motion like this recommendation, we will reach out to, individual members to kind of see if there's going to be a quorum ahead of time.
Yeah, and I think it would be good to have, based on the size of the document, we haven't had it that long, and to have, a discussion of the full quorum group as well. So sorry for the delay, Wendy and folks that are putting this together.
No, I think it's the best thing if the SWAC would take that under advisement and we come back in December.
Yeah.
And then the county can push to have a quorum, because I think it's really important to have everybody available.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'm even wondering if we should, I think it would be really good to message out to the SWAC that they need to spend some time with the document between now and then.
Yeah.
As well. So sort of, it'll do two things. One, it'll force them to read it, and also say, we need you to be present, and then discuss it. So that we've got what makes most sense to the SWAC before we move on, and it's an informed way. So I'm wondering, I'm thinking we're not going to have as much discussion because I think people probably have not read all 227 pages at this point anyway.
Yeah, I mean, if you're reaching out to them, tell them chapter 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah. Yeah, they could focus on those. Those are the meat of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I do want to just check in with Kimberly Graham quickly as the county PM for this project. Does pushing that to December work okay with you, Kimberly?
Yeah, that's totally fine on my end.
Any other comments on process from anybody? Okay, so everybody's got a reading assignment then between now and next month, and then hopefully we'll get everybody present. All right, go ahead.
So the next item on the agenda after that is the manager's report. Jeff Bickford is on jury duty today and mentioned if there was anything relevant that he wanted to share, he'd pass it along to me, and I didn't receive anything, so I don't think he has an update, which takes us to roundtable discussion.
Yeah, I think, as long as we're all here, let's have the presentation on chapters 4 to 6. It'll be a primer for reading the whole document. So I didn't mean to imply, I just think that it'd be good to have a primer now, and then we'll have a full discussion hopefully next month. As long as everybody's taking the time to be here, I think it makes sense to give us that primer right now.
So Dave, I think the point was though that the others that are missing might benefit from the presentation being deferred to next the next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we can't see it twice, but I think that put Wendy through it twice. I think it'd be best if everybody saw it. Everybody who was going to be there for a quorum meeting had the opportunity to see the presentation as well.
Yeah, I don't think it hurts to present it twice.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a lot of stuff, and going over the first time and then reading and coming back and hearing it again may inspire more interesting questions and more deep thought. So you know, if we don't have a quorum, if anybody else wants to skip it, you can check out right now. But, you know, I think that it's worth talking about and having it presented twice from my perspective anyway. It's complicated.
Sure, and as long as Wendy's fine with that, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Are you okay with that, Wendy?
I'm happy to do whatever the SWAC wants to do. I just wanted to save the county some money so we didn't have to present twice. So no worries.
Yeah, well, you're already here, so you're already on the clock. How
Only
long?
a
I mean, is your
shorter amount.
presentation 3 hours or is it, 30 minutes?
I'm a consultant, right? This is 10 hours, right?
Okay.
All right, can everyone see the screen once more?
Yeah.
All right. So yes, we are here. We are back to present on the second half of the hazardous waste management plan. As we know, I'm here with Kimberly Graham, who is the county PM for this project, and Wendy Mifflin from Herrera, our partner in the creation of this plan. So yes, at the last meeting, we presented on chapters 1 through 3, and the focus of this presentation is 4 through 6. And Wendy will be leading this presentation, so I will go ahead and hand it over to her. And Wendy, just let me know when you are ready for me to scroll through the slides.
Good. Next slide, please. Hello, everyone again. So as you know, I did quite a bit of work with the SWAC and the county for the adoption of the solid waste management plan. And those of you that participated in that, I don't think there's very many of you left. I really like questions. I really like feedback. So I'm looking for that from SWAC members, staff as well. So anytime you have a question, just interrupt me or whatever, because I'm really good about that. So as we go forward, we're going to review 3 chapters today. The first chapter we're going to do is chapter 4, which is facilities and programs. Next slide, please. So, and I'll probably go a little off script as we go through the slide presentation as well. So as you know, the backbone of the moderate risk waste handling programs is, a couple-fold. First of all, it's the hazardous waste facility that the county owns and operates that's located at the WARC. And then second of all, it's the programs and the education and outreach that the county provides as part of their MRW program. So as we look at chapter 4, I'm kind of going to go through it a little bit of how the chapter is laid out. And so chapter 4 is existing facilities and programs. You'll see in the first section, 4.1 and 4.2, we have an introduction. We go through definitions, and then table 4.1 is a household hazardous substance list. This list is required as part of the regulatory requirement for ecology to list what type of materials or substances are available to come through a facility. So there's a pretty big list in there. The next section, 4.3, is moderate risk waste generation. And these are also regulatory requirements that ecology has as part of their overview for planning documents. And so we have to do a hazardous waste inventory as part of the plan. And this kind of fleshes out in 3 parts. So we have to talk about dangerous waste generators that are located in the county. And ecology has records that they keep. Their latest records that we use for this plan were as of June 2024. That shows there were 136 businesses and institutions in the county that are registered as hazardous waste generators and have reported the generation of waste. So that's an important idea to keep in mind as we go through this, that there are a lot of businesses that generate hazardous materials in the county. We also have to look at remedial action sites, and the county has an online website, What's in My Neighborhood, that's also part of Ecology's websites. And there are a total of 472 remedial action sites located in the county. And of that, 185 are still in the process and awaiting cleanup. So as you keep that in mind, there are a number of sites in the county that are either in the cleanup process or awaiting a cleanup process, and those have to be listed in the plan as well. We also have to talk about the hazardous waste services, transporters, and facilities, and Ecology has a website for that. And then another requirement for the plan is to list the zone designations where dangerous waste management facilities can be located. And luckily, everybody in the county, all the cities and the county have approved land use zones where they could be located probably under a conditional use permit. So that also meets the ecology requirements. Okay, let's talk about the actual facilities and programs. So the county has at their waste and recovery facility, the Hazo House. And you'll see we have pictures of it in the document with the work facility layout, and then part of the bulking area is a picture in the document. The facility was built in 2011, and it's really a state-of-the-art facility. If you haven't been into the facility or used it, you should take a tour because it's a really great facility for the county. It's a 2,870 square foot facility, and it offers residents and small quantity generators, businesses, the opportunity to bring MRW into the facility for safe disposal.
And Wendy,
Yeah.
Are you still on the same slide here?
I'm kind of going off slide. I don't know what the next
okay.
slide is.
Okay. Okay, there's one thing that I wanted to, it's a little bit of a nuance, but it's really important. And that is that those 126 or whatever registered generators with Department of Ecology, those don't include probably a lot of the small quantity generators because they're not required to register.
Right.
So that's a partial count. There's a lot of businesses that probably are small quantity generators and aren't in a database for Ecology, which is a key thing for MRW.
Yes, that is correct. Thank you for bringing that up, Dave, because that is an important thought process as we go through this. So the ones that are listed as dangerous waste generators, they don't use this facility at all. We just have to list them in the plan and note that they're out there. So I think you can go to the next slide. So we have a number of material collection programs that are offered through the Hazo House. And so we have them listed here. We also have them listed in 4.4.2 of the document. And so all of these are materials that are accepted at the Hazo House. A number of these go through state programs such as eCycle Washington, Light Recycle Washington, or Paint Care. But there's a couple of them that I want to talk to you about that are pretty unique. One of them is the marine related waste program that the health district operates. And they have collection boxes at the Olympia Yacht Club, the Swantown Marina, and Zittles Marina in order to collect marine waste at those sites. And that's free of charge, and the health district goes out, collects that waste, and brings it to the MRW facility. It's a really great program. I think it really needs a shout out, especially for the health district. because it's an important program for the county.
Wendy,
Yes,
can I just make a quick comment? I just want to make sure there's not a misunderstanding. We don't take e-waste at Hazo House.
yes. So in the document under collection programs, I have e-waste listed that it goes through eCycle Washington and not through your facilities. But I think it's important because it is considered a moderate risk waste. And so in the document, we have their website listed so that people can find where to take e-waste. And there are a number of sites throughout the county that accept e-waste.
Great, thanks, Wendy.
Yep, thank you. Good clarification.
A point of reference on that also is that Goodwill used to have a semi-trailer parked right next to the MRW facility that take e-waste for a number of years. And I don't know why that went away. I think it was because Goodwill, but that's a convenience that no longer exists. That it'd be interesting to maybe have a little discussion about that in the plan, about why that's no longer available at the work.
Yeah, I hear you, and maybe I can bring that up as a discussion point at the next SWAC meeting, because I think, yes, that is, I think part of it is how eCycle Washington kind of expanded in the county. But I think it could use some discussion as well.
Yeah, I don't know the story. I just know it changed.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about processing, transport, and disposal. I don't know what I have as the next slide. So go there, I think. Let's take a look. Oh, nope. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about table 4.2, which is in the document, and the quantities shipped and the number of participants through this facility, because it's really eye-opening what comes through this facility and how many participants they have. And I think a shout out really needs to go to the county for what they're running through the facility. So just to keep in mind, we have 3 years of information in the plan. And so I'll only talk about 2023. But in 2023, they ran 371,171 pounds of moderate risk waste through the facility. And that includes household and small quantity generator waste. So I just want to make that clear that it is both. And then they had 45,274 participants. I mean, that's an incredible volume of participants through that facility. So huge shout out to the county for handling that many transactions in a year. It's really something to think about. Okay, next section, 4.4.4 is the household hazardous waste education. And this is run by the Thurston County Health District. They have a number of household hazardous waste education and outreach events and items available. And so as you can see, we've listed the major ones here on the screen, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit. I know that the health district has made presentations to the SWAC on their household hazardous waste education program. And so just to relate back to that, they run a healthy home and garden community events and presentations and partnerships. Last year they had 9 common sense gardening workshops with 136 participants. They had 8 healthier home workshops with 109 participants. They had housing partnerships with low income with 25 participants, and they had more than 235 pledges from local residents who committed to improve their practices regarding how they handled household hazardous waste in their home. So that's just one of the programs that the health district runs on a regular basis. They also do retail store point of purchase outreach, and they distributed over 20,000 common sense gardening, integrated pest, safe medicine return, and other related waste guides through that program. They also do beyond bleach training for childcare workers in the county. And they do a number of networks and partnerships, including Go Green Lawn Care, Thurston Conservation District, the Thurston Eco Network, and the Washington State Eco Pro and E3 Washington. So I think, you know, the health district does a number of household hazardous waste education and outreach programs that are really important as part of the overall MRW programs. And then the last thing on this chapter that I'm going to talk about is also what the county participates in, and that's the business pollution prevention campaign that they work cooperatively with the Department of Ecology, and it's actually funded by the Department of Ecology. And this provides free technical assistances to the businesses. So any business that regulates, handles, stores, or generates hazardous material, they go out and they do business pollution prevention to assist them arm in arm with ecology. So it also brings businesses into compliance with the county's non-point source pollution ordinance, which is also an important document as part of this plan. Okay, so compliance and enforcement also need to talk about that just a little bit, that the health district responds to complaints and other problems, and they receive LaSWIFA grants, which is Department of Ecology grant funding to do compliance and enforcement. Okay, so that's chapter 4. Any other discussion on chapter 4? You guys, you need to be talking to me. Okay, we'll go on to chapter.
Oh, Wendy, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more questions after, because just as you're rattling off, I'm looking through these different websites and stuff, and there's a lot there.
This is a huge program that not a lot of people recognize, and maybe the SWAC isn't fully on board, because a lot of times when the SWAC meets, it's talking about solid waste issues, you know. But this is just as important to make sure that these products are out of the waste stream. So it's a pretty important document.
Well, yeah, and all the different entities that are involved, because we've got the cities, we've got the state, and the county is all there. So
yeah, and it's not just that. I mean, it affects the waste haulers as well. Because, you know, waste haulers don't want to be hauling hazardous waste in their vehicles when they're picking up garbage. I mean, we all know what a fire in a garbage truck looks like. So, you know, this facility and these programs are really important to the county.
oh, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. Because well, whether it's hazardous materials, batteries or chemicals or anything, we don't know what's in there, and we don't want people putting them in there. So absolutely. So I just don't want you to feel discouraged. So we're listening, we're following along. It's just it's a lot.
Yeah, I'm really used to dealing with the SWAC, and so the last time I did a plan, I had tons of feedback. So I'm expecting at the next meeting you all to come back with questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do chapter 5, which is administration and financing. Next slide, please. So I think what's important in this chapter is that there are a number of players when you talk about roles and responsibilities of who has administrative responsibility for not only handling the hazardous waste in the system, but also education and outreach, and then enforcement as well. So let's talk a little bit about each of the players here. The first one is Thurston County Public Health and Social Services Department. And I think they are the ones that are in charge of this plan. They also permit MRW facilities operating in the county, which there is only currently one. They also ensure that permits are consistent with this plan and local ordinances and state and federal regulations. And they have oversight of permitted facilities. So they go in and do inspections and make recommendations for operations. They respond to complaints. They investigate illegal dumping and non-permitted dump sites. A lot of the illegal dumping, there's a lot of hazardous waste that goes into the illegal dumping that's out there. So it's an important operation for public health to deal with. They provide pollution prevention assistance, which we've already talked about. They develop this plan. They do abatement on properties, and they maintain this plan through adoption and beyond. So the health district has a number of, the health department has a number of responsibilities as part of this plan, but also through the regulatory structure for MRW management. In order to do this, public health and the County Department of Public Works has a memorandum of understanding. And so funding for the public health portion comes from LaSWIFA grants, but also comes from the solid waste department through tipping fees collected for garbage disposal. So all of you probably need to know that when we get to the monetary portion. The health department has 9 employees that work under this MRW plan to go out and take on the responsibilities that are approved under this plan. Okay, Public Works, I think as you all know, their authority comes through the Solid Waste Division, and they manage MRW. So they manage the Hazo House and all of the materials that come through there and all the contracts that are related to Hazo House operations. They do some public education and outreach, and you'll see I talk about that a little bit later in some of the recommendations. But the health department and Public Works work arm in arm with education and outreach responsibilities. Let's see, the Hazo House is staffed by 3 technicians. So it's a very limited staffing that they have in that facility for what they handle, both customers and pounds. I want to talk to you a little bit about table 5.1 in the document. So we gave you some financial information from 2024, which is the actual budget. And budget for the facility operation, they have revenues of $286,000, which comes through small quantity generators, which are the businesses that operate, that bring their materials to the facility, and then Department of Ecology grant funding. Their expenditures, on the other hand, remember that number, $286,392 for revenues. Their expenditures, however, are $663,651 to operate that facility, which includes, salary and benefits, supplies, the professional services, which is how they dispose of the materials, make sure that they go for proper disposal or recycling, and then all their utilities in that. So just to keep in mind, this facility, the difference between what they bring in revenues and what their expenses are is about $400,000 a year in 2024. And that money comes out of tipping fee charged at the solid waste sites for garbage. So it's a subsidized facility and very needed. Okay, also, we have the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. That's all of you. So thank you. You support the development of solid waste and moderate risk waste programs and policies. You also make recommendations on the this plan and give us approval to move it forward into the regulatory review and then finally into the adoption process. So the Solid Waste Advisory Committee has quite a large part in looking at this plan and recommending approval of the plan.
So Wendy,
Washington, yeah,
I would not call it a subsidy from the tip fee.
yeah.
I
it
would
is,
like to see
though.
it in the revenue side there, that the contribution on the revenue side from the tip fee.
Yeah.
And
I
it pays
didn't
for
put
more
that-
than just this, doesn't it? Doesn't it pay for some of the public health stuff, or is that all from the ecology grant side?
No, it also pays for that. So I only put the Hazo House financial information in this document. I didn't want to get too far down into the weeds for all the funding, but a number of these programs are paid for through tip fee or grant funding.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is that hard to
typical.
break out from the county side? I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to the accountants, but it seems like or maybe it's elsewhere. Is it elsewhere in the document, the rest of that picture?
No.
I think that would be useful, especially for decision makers, to see, the funding of the programs for all MRW, education, everything, not just the Hazel House.
Yeah. Yes, I can look at that. When I did this table, I looked at it quite a bit because I know it doesn't look like your normal financial table. But I also didn't want to combine funds with the health department and public works. So I can certainly think about that, or Emily can think about how, and the county can think about how they might want it to be shown a little different. I think it's a very important point that, while it's funded by some grant funding, a lot of the tip fee funds this facility.
Right. I just think that, if we're describing, the pollution prevention, the education outreach, all that, we're talking about a program that includes a lot more than just Hazo House.
Yeah.
And so in a financial viewpoint, we should try to summarize both the sources of the funds, tip fee, grants, or whatever, as well as, how they get parsed out to the various parts of the program.
I hear what you're saying. We can certainly look at that.
Okay,
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Okay, so we have,
Clarification for me, Dave, what you're asking for is like, if the tip fee, and then you want to know what percentage of that tip fee is going to which program?
Yeah, and you could put the percentage of the tip fee and how it's split up into different fundings of different programs. But I'm more interested in just, even a flow diagram, here's our 3 or 4 sources of revenues, and then each one of them lists, this funds, this much towards public health, this much towards public works for Hazo House, this much to supporting the SWAC, and, other things like that, this is what people think about. But the business outreach that the public health does is a big deal. And, I just want to be transparent about both where the funds are coming from and also what they're going to, just in as simple as way as possible. Be comprehensive. The Hazo House is one important piece, but it's one of the pieces, and there's more pieces, and we need to describe them all.
Sounds good.
I concur, and it's a good point. Okay, where did I leave off? So SWAC, we talked about that. I think we talked about ecology, and then the last piece of that pie is US EPA and how they regulate through large generators and RCRA. And not that that has anything to do with the Hazo House or the county's end of it, but the US EPA also provides some federal regulatory requirements for the large hazardous waste generators. Okay, anything else on that chapter other than changes to the financial information? All righty then, we're moving on to chapter 6, which is strategy analysis and the implementation plan. And this is actually the recommendations that we're looking for and costs to implement over the planning period. So we did this a little bit differently than we did the solid waste management plan. We looked at some strategies and asked ourselves some questions as we went through the document to see what kind of recommendations maybe should be made for the future for not only handling MRW, but some other items as well. So let's go through those. The first strategy analysis that we looked at is what data is available to ensure equity and access and service levels throughout Thurston County. We know that the county wants to ensure equity across the board. They have a number of programs in the county to make sure that not only are they inclusive, but that there's equity for all residents in the county to participate in the MRW program. So we looked at that first. You will see that I'm going to give a shout out to Dave Nightingale here. So we have in the document looking at some nationwide research about how the average resident needs to dispose of HHW once every 7.4 years. And we use that as the baseline when we look at programs as part of this document. And so when you look at that, the HHW collection should be serving at least 13.5% of the county's households each year. And so we talked about how many were serviced in our table in chapter 4, but in 2023, Thurston County reported 45,000 customers utilize the facility. The county estimates that there's 126,700 households in the county. And so actually the county, rather than a 13.5% service rate, hit a 36% service rate for households in the county through that facility. I think that's an incredible number and something that the SWAC really needs to keep in mind as you look at this document, because that's really an outstanding service level for an HHW facility to be able to put out there and advertise to its constituents. So we also talked about the stakeholder engagement, and Emily talked about that at the last meeting, the stakeholder engagement that was done in 2022 as part of the South County Transfer Station project, and then also the stakeholder engagement that was done this year by HDR and the public health group, looking at how we can engage residents. And so there's a recommended strategy that comes out of that. And I'll talk about all of the recommended strategies at the end, but we have recommended strategies for each of these as we go through. Our next strategy that we looked at was what facilities and programs will be needed to meet the future needs of household and small quantity generators. And so we looked at that. We looked at considering options in the South County, because currently there are no facilities and programs for collection of household hazardous waste in the South County. Neither the Rainier or Rochester drop box sites accept household hazardous waste down there. And so residents in those areas have to drive up to the Hazo House there at the WARC in order to get rid of their household hazardous waste. So we looked at that. We also noted that in previous years, there was a waste mobile that public health operated that went into underserved areas. And that was kind of, that program kind of went away, mainly during COVID, because it was pretty hard to go out and meet people in the public during COVID. So we know that went away. So So we will have strategies to talk about when we get to that table relating to what programs and facilities are needed. We also looked at what MRW reduction methods could be considered. And one of those options, you know, not only the EPR programs that the state is implementing, but also how to manage materials that could go back out to the public for reuse. Prior to 2021, the Hazo House had a swap shop that went away due to some liability concerns. And so we looked at that as well. We also looked at how can people and the environment be better protected from hazardous materials, and how to enhance and make a vibrant MRW facility program that will work in the future for everybody. So we look at that, and we gave some actions for consideration in that. And then how we can ensure that our messaging is inclusive to all of Thurston County. We know that the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners has adopted a number of resolutions about public health crisis and racism, and then also looking at the council that they put together to it's a council on racial equity and inclusion that the county has, and making sure that this plan is in alignment with that council's goals and objectives as well. And then our next strategy was what options exist for strategic partnership and collaboration. We took a look at that. What committees could the county be on to have some strategic partnerships, how the state and the county can work together, and how they can look at pollution prevention and provide technical assistance to small quantity generators. And then the last strategy that we looked at was what additional funding will be necessary to ensure the MRW management system remains healthy and vibrant. Want to make sure that finances are in place to not only keep the current operations going, but also make sure that things can be expanded as they're needed to service constituents in the county. I know I saw that, Dave. We'll fix that. I saw it just now. Okay, so
I had some questions, comments on your recommendation, of course.
With that, we have recommendations. So next slide, please. We have recommendations broken out, and they're broken out into the plan a little differently than what you're seeing on here. So not only do we have the strategy, the recommendation, and the cost, but in the plan, we also have an implementation schedule of when it will happen and who will be responsible for implementing. Didn't want to get all that on the slide and make it messy, so we can, you guys can all look at table 6.1 for the full table. But for facilities and programs, well, okay, data collection is the first one that we talked about. So we want to make sure to continue data collection of participation at the Hazo House. That's really important. And then and also to know what future facilities and programs that the community will need that will meet the needs of MRW participation in programs. And we have a $5,000 implementation cost for that, because it's just a continuing data collection. It's not something new, but we think there's probably going to be some extra money that's going to need to be designated for that. Under facility, we have 4 recommendations under facilities. Of course, the first one is to continue operations of the Hazo House facility. And that would have, really no added cost. The county already has the operations, continues to budget. So it would just be an ongoing budget for the continued operation. Facility number 2 is to review and complete capital improvements as they're outlined in the county capital improvement plan. I see your comment, Jennifer. Thank you. And so we want to, the county does a county capital improvement plan. They do that every so many years. We want to say that it will be determined as implemented because we don't know exactly what they're planning over the next 5 and 20 years for improvements to the Hazo House. That will all depend on the number of participants and what they might need at the facility as materials come in. Facility 3 is consider construction of an MRW facility to meet the needs of residents and businesses in the southern portion of the county. The county is looking at that as part of their South County Transfer Station project. But that South County Transfer Station project, but that facility is probably out about 5 years. So there will not probably be an MRW facility until that project moves forward. And so with that, we have a facility number 4 that we didn't have in the original document, but we've added that says consider options for providing HHW disposal to serve remote areas in the county. Whether that be going out with the waste mobile, whether that be having collection events. I think the South County is probably not being serviced at a level that is needed currently. So questions, comments on these facility recommendations?
I'm glad to see number 4 there. That was a comment I was going to make. So that's great. You're way ahead of me.
The wording was in the upfront part of the document, but the recommendation didn't get there. And it was like, oops, I know Dave will ask about that. Okay, next slide. So then we're going to look at programs. And we have 5 recommendations for programs. The first one is wanting to look at implementation of program alternatives that promote product reuse at the Hazo House facility. And let's talk about that for a minute. The county used to have the swap shop there. They've gotten rid of that. And I understand why, for liability reasons. The county is looking at, and Laura, are you still on? I think the county is looking at contracting and looking at some alternatives for reuse of products. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah, we're still gathering all of our documents and data right now. We had a little sample collection that happened about a month or 2 ago. And we're going to be targeting nonprofits to sign up for a reuse program. And then hopefully branching out to something larger, but we want to start with some baby steps first just to get our footing.
Yeah, I think a lot of the swap shops or whatever used to be the method of handling materials that could go back out to the public for reuse. But a lot of that is changing because of some of the EPR programs that have gone in place. You know, it used to be paint was really loaded in your swap shop to get that out. But with Paint Care, you know, that's kind of gone away. And then, you know, some of the other products that the state is looking at for EPR, I think looking at some program alternatives is probably the way to go. So that's the first one. The next one is to advocate for policy actions and education and outreach programs that look at safer alternatives, preventing exposure, and supporting EPR and product stewardship for hazardous products. I think that's a pretty popular recommendation to come out of here. It'll probably be one of the most expensive ones because it'll be education and outreach programs to go out into the public with. So that one has a little bit bigger budget than some of the others you'll see. Program 3 is to do education and outreach for households and SQGs that look at safer alternatives, safe use and storage, and safe disposal. I think that will be an important program going forward. And then program 4, ensure that MRW messaging is all inclusive and supports the racial equity action plan. I think the county is going to need to work through that council to make sure that all of their education and outreach is in alignment with the county racial equity action plan. And then program 5, continue membership in the Washington State Association of Counties affiliate groups to make sure that the county is included in future legislative initiatives. So
Wendy,
it
I have
had
a
a question.
question.
Okay, wait a minute. I had a question. I gotta go back. How is program 2 different than what is currently? I think it's probably an expansion of the program that's currently out there. And then as more and more EPR programs come on, I think there is going to be additional costs to the county for implementing, whether you get that through grant funding or whether you have to pay for it in-house. I think the state is probably going to go for some EPR programs in the next few years on hazardous products that are probably going to have some costs. So that's why that's in there like that.
Is that number 2, is that short of lobbying for legislation?
It is short of lobbying for legislation. Program 5 is where you would be doing some input into future legislative initiatives.
Okay.
So the county solid waste group and the public health group both have membership through WASAC to give feedback onto legislative policy. And so we're suggesting under program 5 that the county continue to do that both through the health department and the solid waste group.
Also was wondering about program 1. And earlier you said that liability was part of the reasons why the reused stuff isn't happening as much. And I hadn't heard that before. Is that something that you just generally came up with, Wendy, or is that from public works staff or legal counsel? Where did that concept come from?
So some of that concept comes from my knowledge of operations of a full-blown household hazardous waste facility. And I could tell you some horror stories about liability issues and doing product reuse out of a Hazo House facility. In Yakima County, we had a number of cleanups because we were giving products out to the public and they were stockpiling them. And then we had to go in and do cleanup actions that the solid waste division had to pay for. So that's one of them. The other one is that sometimes putting products out on the shelf, you have to be really careful. We got dinged by Department of Ag for some of the products that were, going back out on the shelves. So, and it's, it's liability. I talked to Jeff a little bit about it. He had some concerns as well about liability from the county end and giving out products as well. So that's why that one's in there. And that's why Laura is working on an alternative program to go out with rather than just a swap shop table.
Okay. Yeah, and what you say resonates with me. And actually, I was on my way to Walla Walla a couple weeks ago. I stopped in the Yakima facility and for a while talked to the operators and saw what they're doing there. And they're sending a lot of stuff out in reuse. And ag is you can't put out banned pesticides. You have to know what you can't put up. So that's good. And the potential liability. So I think that I would try to not characterize it as you did as a liability issue. What I think about that is we've been sued so many times and we have such legal bills. That isn't the issue that I've ever seen anywhere in the country, actually, that people have been sued for reuse stuff. There's always a potential to get sued for anything, but it doesn't seem to be a thing that I would say it's a liability from a legal standpoint. That doesn't seem to happen.
It was in Yakima County.
What happened there?
Because we didn't get sued, but we had to go out and do the cleanup because it was materials that came out of the facility. So,
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's a liability in the plan, but I'm telling you that there's a liability there.
Okay, and that's a financial going out and picking it up, and I mean a little bit tongue in cheek, but so what the people did, and let me describe that and make sure I'm doing it right, that people were, hoarders were coming, they were taking all kinds of stuff off the shelf, they were sticking it in their house or their basement or somewhere, and then later on it was identified this is stuff that came for reuse, they died or something, and you had to go and pick it up and bring it back.
Yes.
So that's an additional cost, but sort of a tongue-in-cheek part of it is that so they've been storing this stuff and you haven't had to dispose of it for many years. So that's money you've been avoided having to say in your program.
Well,
but nobody died. You didn't get sued, and they're doing the storage for you without paying, without paying rent.
I think from a county's perspective, that's probably not the way you'd want to look at it, but
I know
what you're saying.
but I mean, I'm just, unless there's other stuff, that the legal beagles aren't involved in this anywhere that I'm aware of ever nationally. So, when I say liability, it's like there's potential cost of hoarders and describing those things you actually talked about, as opposed to calling it about illegal liability. So anyway, I suggest maybe more accurately portraying it in how you describe it.
Thank you. It's not one of the program recommendations, and it's not described that way. So I hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Next slide. Okay, and then the final ones for administration, we want to make sure that adequate staffing is available for Hazo House operations, MRW permitting and oversight, pollution prevention assistance, investigations, and property abatement. And so these will probably require additional staff as the county moves forward with this. Administration number 2 is to consider adopting the hazardous waste management plan as part of the solid waste management plan update process. Want to talk to you a little bit about that because there's some background on that. So the last time the solid waste management plan, the county has always maintained 2 documents in the past. When the last solid waste management plan was updated in 2020, the health district and the health department and the public works talked about pulling the hazardous waste management plan in as part of the solid waste management plan. But because of the items that the SWAC was working through and Ecology's input, they chose to do the solid waste management plan as a separate document, and then this one as a separate document this time as well. But I think the county should consider adopting the 2 of them together, and that's done in quite a few places in the state now as well. So that's administration number 2. And then for financing, make sure to provide adequate funding to make sure that the system remains healthy and vibrant, and look at funding needs on a yearly basis. And then for enforcement, continue the MRW enforcement activities through the health department. Sorry, I keep calling you a district, and Ecology to ensure the residents and businesses comply with pollution prevention and MRW handling requirements. So any questions, comments on those? Okay, and then to finish us out of this section.
I have a comment on administrative 2.
Okay.
And that is that I think that doesn't bode well. When I've seen the plans combined, it ends up, you end up with like 1 chapter, 50 pages or something on MRW, and most of it gets to be solid waste, and it gets backseat essentially, is what I've seen. Minimal, and you don't get as much discussion and as this is very complicated, there's a lot of moving parts, and I think it is a disservice to have it in a combined plan.
So I'm going to give you the other perspective that the county is already considering this and has had some thought process about how to do this so that maintain the documents so that you get both the solid waste management plan and the hazardous waste management plan as documents, but still in one document. So you don't have to go through two adoption processes, not only through ecology, but also through the cities. It's very costly and time consuming to have two documents like this. So the county public works staff is considering how to keep the hazardous waste management plan as an appendices so that you can have the full-blown hazardous waste management plan in the document and keep the integrity of the hazardous waste program separate. And like you say, not just have a single chapter and how they might do that. So it's just a consideration. It's not a requirement. It's something for the county to consider, and it's something for the Public Works Department and the Health Department to discuss and decide if that's what they want to do or not.
Yep, I agree. It's their choice. I'm just saying that I've seen it done poorly more than well. It can be done well, but you're running a risk of maybe not this iteration, but the next iteration where it gets short shrift. Yep,
and that's why it says just consider it. Take a look at it, have some discussion, decide what they want to do, include the SWAC as part of that discussion as well. Okay, so to round out this chapter, there's a couple things. This document has to go through a SEPA process for approval. So there's a SEPA checklist, has to go to the planning department for approval. That will get done at the same time that it goes to ecology for their comments. And hopefully the county gets a determination of non-significance as part of this. That's usually what happens with plan documents. We also talk about the 20-year implementation program. You have to look 20 years out and make some comments on that on a plan. So we have that in the document. And then we also have procedures for amending the hazardous waste management plan. That's a requirement too. So we look at that, looking at full revisions every year in line with when the solid waste management plan is done, looking at the county and the SWAC to develop and review those changes and how that might work, how the environmental health director, if there are amendments that need to be made to the plan, those would go to the environmental health director for approval. And then, if they're major, it has to go back through the whole process to the cities, the county for approval. If they're considered minor, they can just be approved and updated. Okay, so with that, there are also some appendices to this plan that I think you've looked at. And do you want to talk about those, Emily?
Sure, I can do that. So this is the list of appendices that are in the draft plan now. The two in blue have placeholders, but we don't have any information in there yet. So we'll include the solid waste interlocal agreements with the various jurisdictions. Once we have the resolutions of adoption, we'll insert those. Appendix C will also include a table with the status of the previous plan recommendations from 2014. Appendix D will include the SWAC bylaws. Also, it will include proof of participation, so an agenda from a meeting. And I will note that what's included in the draft plan now, those are just placeholder documents. They were actually borrowed from the solid waste management plan. So those will be updated. You can ignore those for now if you've seen that in the draft plan. We'll include the SEPA checklist, Once it's approved, we'll have the signed version inserted. We'll have the detailed survey results from the survey effort that we talked about at the last meeting. We'll include Ecology's comments, as well as responses to those comments, what was changed. And then the final appendix will include the small quantity generator fees at the Hazo House.
Did I miss anything on the slide?
No, that was all the slides. We covered them all. Thank you, Wendy. That was very thorough. And actually, I'm wondering, because this presentation is so thorough, rather than repeating at the next SWAC meeting and potentially not having time for the discussion and Q&A that we're hoping for, is there an opportunity for the SWAC members who were not able to join today to watch the recording and kind of catch up to where they are, so they can see the presentation, they can see the questions that were brought up, and then we could sort of dive into where we left off at the next meeting? Is that possible?
I can definitely send out a link to this recording to all of SWAC so that they can get up to speed.
That'd be great. I mean, if everybody can, do that before the meeting, or a majority of folks, that would certainly save us time next time. We could be further along the road. I guess we'll have to wait and see if that happens or not. But yeah, encouraging that to happen would be great.
I think that might be helpful, because even if we repeated the same presentation, they would have missed the discussion that happened during the presentation, which I think is important as well.
Good idea, Emily.
I'll send that out with the follow-up materials.
Great. Thank you, Laura.
Well, thank you.
Anything else on chapter 4 to 6? Thank you, Wendy. Thank you for taking my comments.
We know each other too well, Dave, okay?
We've been around the block a few
I already knew what
times.
your comments would be.
You knew what I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so no manager's report, so we're to roundtable. And I guess I already shared, I mean, the one thing that significant thing I did was I visited the Yakima household hazardous waste facility, and it was really interesting. And it actually, Wendy said we've got a good one here in Hazo House, and we do. Yakima is one of the best facilities on the east side of the Cascades, if not the best facility. So Wendy and her crew there ran a really good facility, and it was really largely due to a guy named Mark Nedrow many years ago. But anyway, it's stood the test of time, and it's still really good. They've expanded it a few times, so we may expand ours at some point. It's actually kind of small. As far as state of the art, it was pretty good when we developed it, but it probably ought to be bigger. Any roundtable from anybody at all?
Question in the chat from Jennifer Johnson.
Curious about how much input staff had in the plan.
Oh, that's a great question. I can jump in and answer that. So once we drafted each chapter, then the chapter was circulated around to the county for staff to provide input at that time, so that by the time we brought the full draft plan to the SWAC, hopefully staff had all had the opportunity to review and comment.
Okay.
I have a quick event news to share. The education outreach team at Public Works is putting on a Fix-It Fair this month. It will be Wednesday, November 20th from 3 to 6 p.m. at Lacey Makerspace. That's at the St. Martin's University campus. So if you're interested in either getting something fixed, or if you have some fixing skills and you'd like to be a volunteer fixer, please get in touch. There's information on our website as well as our Facebook page, but if you aren't sure where that is, just give me a call, or Laura, drop Laura a line, and we'll get you the information you need to participate.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? I have one other thing I want to mention, but anybody else have anything?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jennifer she wanted to know about staff input. Jennifer, who do you work with?
Yeah, I work with public health. And
Okay.
so I do a lot of the education and outreach that was mentioned. And then I did get the opportunity to do some of the Hazo House surveying that went into the plan. And that's, I've been doing education and outreach for over 20 years. So I have a lot of opinions, if you will. And there's just certain things that I'm a little bit confused about and concerned about with this, and just wondering how much input staff has at this point, or is it sort of like your input has already been gathered, this is a done deal, we're at the point. I mean, I certainly don't want to be slowing anything down. I know how excruciatingly slow these things can go. And so I want to be really respectful and aware of that. And I just have some curiosities around this part of it.
So I think from our end, we want to get the most input we can. We have to make sure on these plans, so these plans don't go down into actual operations. So we want to make sure the plan doesn't say, health department, you will do this, this, and this. We want to leave it open so that you can put together the best programs available. Same with Hazo House operations. We don't want to get into day-to-day operations. We want to make sure that this is a high-level overview for adoptions by the city and the county. If you have concerns, I think it's 100%, reach out to your group on your end and talk those through. Reach out to Emily and make sure that she hears them, because we're wide open to talk about it. We want to make sure that this plan works for the long term, but we also don't want to get into, we're going to do this operation, we're going to do this education and outreach. We want to make sure that it's, a wide open so you can do what you want to do. So, feel free to reach out. I think input is great, and I know the SWAC appreciates that too.
Super, thank you. No, I really appreciate that. The ability for staff to determine, what the best way to implement the education plan is. I very much appreciate that. I just, there's a few things, like I felt like a lot of the information gathered about Hazo House was gathered from people at Hazo House. So you're really then missing people who are not using Hazo House. I feel like there's a lot of people in the county who don't even know about Hazo House. And I say that as somebody who talks to hundreds and hundreds of people every year. Many people, of course, know about Hazo House. And when I was there doing the surveys, the majority of people were from very nearby. And so then, I kind of want to hear then from folks in other areas of the county. And from my perspective as, very kind of just low level staff, there wasn't much opportunity to gather information from people outside of the Hazo House kind of geographic area to determine, what the needs and barriers are.
So I want to address that a little bit, because I think that's important. So I hope I'm not running over the meeting. But so I actually was the one that did the outreach for the South County Transfer Station project. And when we did that outreach, we actually went out to South County, Rainier, and Rochester and surveyed people down there, because I think, that's a valid point. We want to know how those people are getting access to service as well. All that information is in a report that was done in 2022, I think. And so I think, Emily can certainly get that to you so you can take a look at it. And, you can feel free to reach out to Emily or myself and talk through what we did there too, because we thought it was important to reach out to those in South County. We also did a county-wide survey we mailed postcards, we did all kinds of stuff. So take a look at that and see what you think, and then feel free to reach out.
And I
And
will,
then,
oh,
well, I was just going to ask if that information will be incorporated then into this document in terms of, you know, to help develop this plan.
so there was a summary of that survey effort back in 2022 that was rolled into the survey results in chapter 3, which was the original intent, knowing that we already had survey responses from South County and that we would be able to combine some of those responses. And so in this survey effort, you know, I do, and you remember you were part of some of these surveys. We actually did more offsite surveying than onsite at Hazo House. Just it turned out that Hazo House participants were much more responsive to the survey. It seemed like a lot of folks that were coming into Hazo House were willing to participate in the survey, whereas a lot of those other offsite survey efforts, we were just getting less participation, as hard as we did try in that 3-week survey period. But we always knew we would have those South County responses as well to compare.
Great. I wasn't aware of the South County data being integrated into this, so that's I'm happy to hear that. And yeah, I mean, just as the person who, one of the people that was at Hazo House, you know, they're kind of a captive audience in terms of surveying them. Is really easy to just, they're right there in line. You can just ask them a few quick questions. Whereas at the Thurston County Fair, you know, you maybe are there for an equal amount of time and getting 3 people who are going to take time away from their cotton candy to answer your question.
And which is also why we had the online survey as well. So that would, you know, include all Hazo House visitors as well as folks who may not be aware of the Hazo House.
Yeah.
Can we, as was mentioned, you know, there's some turnover from year to year with the SWAC. Maybe good to recirculate those survey results to the group. Laura's or Emily or somebody, can you send those around with the context of why we're sending that out to people?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. All right. And actually the one other thing I wanted to say here, we're running a little over time, I apologize, is I'd like to have on the December agenda at the end, if we have time. If not, we can push it to a future time. A report on what you folks are doing on the reuse side for the Hazo House. So not time critical, but it's, I think, you know, that staff ought to get credit and show what they've been doing. So that'd be great. And there's nothing else, unless anybody else saw a last minute emergency thing we need to talk about. We're about 5 minutes over. So thank you all for being here, and hopefully we'll get everybody back and more next time. Thank you so much, everybody. See you in December.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.